Joel Greenlee, what is your opinion of Paul Thomas Anderson's film, The Master? Do you think it accurately portrays Scientology at that formative time? And K.S. Fitzgerald, I was wondering if you had seen Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master. If so, what did you think about it? PTA also said he showed the film to Tom Cruise, but wouldn't discuss his reaction. Could you imagine what his reaction would have been? I did see Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master. I think within the last year or so I actually sat down and finally just watched it, because of course I didn't see it while I was involved with Scientology when it first came out. And I have to say that I was actually very, very impressed with the film. I plan at some point on doing a full film review of it. I've been totally backlogging on my film reviews since this move happened. I've got about 4 that I need to get done, and then The Master would be 5. It was very well researched. The uses of the technology of Dianetics and Scientology were interesting because some were absolutely 1000% exactly what it would look like in a Scientology organization. And then other parts were just kind of made up, but in an interesting way. Like when Philip Seymour Hoffman's character starts using the questions of Scientology's personality test as though it was an auditing session, and he's asking questions to Joaquin Phoenix's character as though he's auditing him, doing Scientology counseling, they call it auditing, with these questions, and they're bizarre enough, and Scientology's techniques can be a bit odd enough that scene actually made sense, even though I knew that that's not something you would do in Scientology. You do the personality test in order to open up and start telling Scientology your dark secrets so that they can reel you in. Which I guess was pretty much what happened in the film. I don't think Anderson was ignorant of what he was doing there. I think he was using the information he had to make a point about how people are drawn into Scientology, and I think he did it well. As well as the hypnotic sense of how some of the processes go, having it go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, just on and on and on, and that's exactly what it's like to be audited on those objective processes in Scientology. I had stayed away from the film for a while because I'd been told that it was kind of weird, but pretty strange. People had, not so great reactions to it, and so I kind of just sloughed it off. But when I did finally see it, I realized that the reason people were so weirded out by it is because it accurately is portraying a lot of what Scientology is like. And I think he really did nail the early days of Dianetics as far as how he was lecturing, how the guy had a temper, how he would deal with confrontation or criticism. There was this scene in a room where he's just tearing into a guy and obviously losing his shit on this guy, and everybody in the room is very uncomfortable. I think that very accurately portrayed Hubbard's sort of vindictive nature when he thought that somebody was trying to best him or criticize him. There was a scene where the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, I keep saying that because I can't remember the guy's name in the film, but the son says, you realize he's just making this up as he goes, right? I mean, that's actually exactly what I think L. Ron Hubbard's son was quoted as saying, and certainly seems true to me in a number of ways as far as how Hubbard went about developing things. It's not like he did a lot of deep scientific research, which is what he always claimed, right? He was running all these scientific tests and doing experiments and, running a series on lots of different pre-clears and whatnot, which was not how Hubbard actually did things. He would dream up some process, run it on a person, and if there was any success with it, we found it, we've got the new thing, and off they would run with it. And this was going on over and over and over again through the 50s. And I think that kind of showed in the film how that kind of process went and how good he was at just going out and giving a lecture to people right off the top of his head. He could just make stuff up and just keep people entertained for, an hour or so with these lectures he would do. And if you really break down what he was saying, half of it, more than half of it, was just total, gobbledygook. And a lot of it were tall tales he was telling, and things like that. So I think the film showed all that. I'll say one thing as well, which I was very, very impressed by with the film, was the relationship of his wife, which of course would have been Mary Sue Hubbard, in the real world. The film has Amy Adams playing his wife, and the dynamic of them, I thought, was very insightful, and it also kind of showed how, if you're familiar with the Dianetics and Scientology backstory, and you know what they're showing you in the film, which is a fairly accurate representation of what went on through the 50s and into the 60s, then you see how her role was crucial to his support and to keeping the organization going. And I don't think anybody has ever really seen that before the way Paul Thomas Anderson did. And I thought it was very insightful the way he wrote her character in to where she was, very steel backbone, very ruthless, determined, dedicated to the cause, and willing to sacrifice people or do whatever it took in order to keep the thing moving forward and supporting, her husband. But also, there was a very crucial scene in the film where she kind of literally has him by the, private parts, and is telling him in no uncertain terms that he can fool around, but he better not do it and flaunt it in front of her face, and making it clear that there is a codependency with them, that it wasn't all about her aggrandizing Hubbard, but he needed to also service her needs. And I think that was something Mary Sue in the real world was able to pull off, however she did it. Where you see in real life, L. Ron Hubbard's earlier marriages and relationships were disasters, and he was a horrible womanizer and even a bigamist. Where he had married two women at the same time for a year. So I thought that whole relationship and dynamic is actually kind of an important part of Scientology history that is hardly ever talked about or discussed. And it really got me thinking a lot more about Mary Sue. So I liked the film for that reason. Joaquin Phoenix's character and the relationship between him and Dodd, wasn't that the guy's name, Dodd? Anyway, between the Philip Seymour Hoffman character, that was an interesting relationship, and I know it was the main theme of what Paul Thomas Anderson was trying to do, was sort of the codependent relationship of the master and the servant, or the leader and the follower, and how they play off one another. This guy was pretty screwed up by the war. He was a pretty screwed up guy, period. And he goes in and he gets, very fanatic about this cause. And then he breaks away from it. And then, it's sort of maybe better for the experience. You're sort of like, maybe he's got some of his stuff together, maybe not. It's not like he was delivered what it promised, though, which I thought was also well portrayed in the movie. But in terms of answering these questions, I think that it was very, very, very accurate. And I think that's one reason why the film comes off as strange as it is to a lot of people, is because Scientology is pretty strange. And as far as Tom Cruise's reaction, Paul Thomas Anderson said he showed it to Cruise and that they're still friends. Personally, I think Cruise would have been furious. That's what I think. I think Tom Cruise was not happy with that film. I don't think there was any way he could have been happy with that film, because it clearly shows L. Ron Hubbard, and it clearly shows him in a not totally negative light, but a weird and strange and odd light that doesn't particularly do him a lot of favors. And and Paul Thomas Anderson was trying to take a higher look at it. He was taking a bird's eye view of the whole thing. So there's not direct clear-cut judgments being made in the film about the Hubbard character, about Joaquin Phoenix's character. But I found them, from a Scientologist point of view, that's nothing but critical, right? It's horrible. It's awful. It's because if you're not painting Hubbard in a angelic light, then you're a horrible person. So I'm pretty sure that he was very unhappy with how that film was put out and how Scientology and the early days of Dianetics were portrayed there. So there you go.